Lady Tathram's Tale. It runs on about 2.5 pages, so I'll give you the gist of it. This young man who was the son of the original Denther of Gondor, who was that Steward, the King Steward's son, was introduced to this young lady who was half elvish. When his father found out about it, he felt that he had been cheated and lied to. He tried to persuade his son, uh, Bromigor, to give up the planned marriage and cast the woman aside. He wouldn't have it. He was in love with her. And of course, she was half elven, so there was something to go there. The two of them fled the city and Gondor in general and wandered the north. Eventually, became a few names of renown. She called him, what is it? My love, you suffered much with me, and willingly suffer more. Yet you do not let it anger you. Neither does this hardship break your spirit. To me, you're like the willow tree which bends in the gale. So I will call you Tatharim. Her husband liked his new name with bitter memory of his father behind him, not even a name to remind him of the times past. They wandered for many a week. Anyway, they managed to save some dwarves from some undead whatevers in the particular location that we're at. And one of them, the leader was named Holly, was one of the great stonemasons and crafters of Moria, cousin Dum, and was known for making a number of the major caverns. He asked him what could he do. They made a deal with him to build him basically a keep, and eventually they lived in bliss and happily for a number of years, with traditional how these stories go. And then apparently some menace in the deep swamp drew the attention of the young lord, and he went off to deal with the problem. And one of them had some magic abilities, and they cursed him, turned him into something, I think a snake, if I'm reading this correctly. The mulip stood stunned, and Tathrin's oh no, it turned him into a swan, because the mulip had a magical ring that had elvish manufacture, so it still had part of the elvish spirit in it, and it manipulated what the evil creature's desire was. So instead of creating a snake, it created a swan, and so on and so forth. So the Lady Term lived for 7 years, her beauty unaging. For 6 days she entertained the company of her maids, and then she eventually sent everybody away. In recent weeks, she was discovered that she was pregnant. This gave her great joy, blah, blah, blah. Told me she fell and rose from the golden chain around her neck, caught the roof unit, choked. The ring dropped from the chain and bounced on the bridge. They don't suggest that it's the One Ring. And we know that Sauron created it, so there's no elvish spirit in it. But it still was a ring of power, just one that's now lost from time. And even show this nice little picture of our would-be hero and the mulip that he's wrestling with, and then eventually this big huge swan that he turns into. Okay, we talked about not that long ago in one of the questions of the great 31-day challenge for the RPG Brigades 2017. Good writing or a good story in a book or in a series. And like I said, Lord of the Rings, the Middle Earth game system is full of really good writing. And this is one of the reasons I became enamored with this system when it first came out. Like I've said, I love the stories. I grew up reading the novels. I like the movies, although I have umbrage with some of the creative, license that Peter Jackson took. Hey, he still got them right, or damn close, right? I'm not going to fault the man for that. But the storylines in these things, the connectivity, all these would-be modules and adventures, source books, what have you, is pretty spectacular. And other game systems do a good job of doing that. I'm not trying to disparage any of the other systems, especially the ones you're particular fan of. I'm just pointing out that, this has got a lot of good fluff in it. And so what we have here is another module from Iron Crown Enterprises, the fantasy role-playing adventure module from J.R.R. Tolkien's Middle-earth, the Mouse of the Entwash. Now, they mention it a couple times in the movies and in the books. The characters never actually set foot into the Entwash, but it's basically, if you think the mouth of the in any major river, the mouth of the Mississippi, for example, the mouth of Jesus. I can't think of the name. What's that one in Egypt? I mean, I know it. And their delta is probably very extensive. And there's the Yukon Delta or whatever in Vietnam, so on and so forth. We got a map, right? This is the area right here where the party, the ring bearers broke up, where Pippin and Merry are captured by the Urkai, and they're carried westward towards Fangorn Forest, and with the intentions of eventually going to Isengard, and the rest of the party Frodo and Sam cross the river and head off to the Gladden Fields for their adventures, and eventually end up in Mordor, right? So this would be the area to the south. The party broke up before they got a chance to actually travel into it, so we don't see it. According to the book, it's sparsely populated. There's a number of towns and villages, mostly around the perimeter of it. There's one channel that's kept clean and dredged by the elements of the Gondor during the age of the roughly 1640. At that time, Gondor still controls most of the area to the south. Roham now exists to the west. Prior to that, all this was land controlled by Anori and Kandahor, which was a province of Gondor, and would have been their northern most holdings for the majority of their existence. The Entwash itself is a crucial river crossing, if you will, because it allows for trade to go further up the Great River, and trade to go west almost as far as the mountains, and without needing to truck it up by mule or horse or wagon. So quite valuable. And so with Gondor, they make an effort to patrol it with riverboats and small garrisons. And like I said, here's some good maps. The typical, like, of all these modules, they actually go a little bit deeper than your standard game module because they're wider range as far as I'm concerned. The portraits and landscape chapter, where they discuss the direct, the vicinity, the location, the geographical oddities, and so on and so forth, such as, however, not all land between the rivers is marsh. The narrow tongue between the Odal and the Foreman is called the Breck Isle, a sandy place where flooding river deposits its heaviest silt, and there is a rough moorland pasture between the Midden and the Slough, overlooked by the lonely Middle Hill, and claimed by the herders of Ardomar, a tiny village known as Overwash. And then we got chapter 3, towns and villages: Amerdon, Aberdale, Guanland, Tal Penless, Smitham. And then we got our chapter on fauna and flora, which, like I said, I like because they go to an effort to give you, the run-of-the-mill stuff. Here's a black otter that you're going to run into, and common insects, the blue otter, the fin boar, the gray wolf, pond bat, wild goat, birds of prey, fish, reptiles and amphibians, small creatures, beetles, leeches, mussels, snails, knickerbockers. Come on, everybody knows the knickerbockers, right? They infested that swamp in the north that Aragorn took. Strider led the hobbits through on their way to the last homely house. Now Rivendell. Now they left that they left that part out of the movie, but it was, it's in the book, and it's one of those things where it wasn't. But the very annoying insect, known by in many the worst swamps of Middle Earth, Gigantic relatives of the mosquito, these carnivorous prefer solid meat, so while it does not suck blood, a knickerbreaker will appropriate small chunks of a man's flesh. Any wound is infected by a knickerbreaker has a chance of becoming infected with the yellow room, which is a zero-level illness. So, you're gonna get sick. You're not gonna feel well, but it's not gonna kill you, and it's not gonna prevent you from getting on with your day. Hence the level 0. And then, of course, the monsters. Oh, the odds. Oh, what do you do? And then we got into chapter 6, the Water of Life. And we are now into the stories, and there's several, like all these things. They have a variety of them. So, in the Smuggler's Tale, where you go and you're hired by the local townspeople to deal with a smuggler problem, which is threatening trade. They give you a layout of the little town of Merlin Steps. This is where you're based out of. Like I said, I like these things. I can't emphasize that enough because I've used these in numerous game systems as ready-made towns, and all I gotta do is do a few place name changes, and they work, and I don't have to go through a lot of hassle and effort. Same thing goes with things like, here's the encounter for the Smuggler's Cavern, and it's fleshed out. It's got its location. It's got its stuff set up. Here's the kitchen at Pete's store. Small room with stacked supplies of food, kindling, and peat. Vakanda has a very good relationship with the widow of Ferrando, thanks to her healing skills, and they obtain supplies through her. In this room, stacks a few boxes and crates and large rack stacked at the top with vegetables and cured meat, at the bottom of flagons of wine and ale. There are also some large utensils such as the cauldron, spit, etc., kept here when not used. See, hey, not a lot of bang for your buck, not a lot of work. Ooh, Day of Yawns. So we come on and then we continue chapter 6, the Smuggler's Flight, Vakandra and Luger's route, blah, blah, blah. And there's route, the task is route, the tasks, starting for the players, the aids, the obstacles, and the rewards. Well, howdy doody, isn't that great? Back in the background is a carbonation system for the McDonald's I'm parked at, because I've got a 2-hour gap between jobs, and that's what he just hooked up. I'm guessing carbonation gas. He's now refilling the main tanks inside. Awesome. Thanks for trying to explain that to my wife the other day when she asked what that was for. Why is that weird looking oversized garden hose nozzle thing attached to the side of the wall so like it is? I said, well, there you go. Bet you wasn't here to see it. The rewards. The rewards for dealing with the major reward for this adventure is the bounty offered by Amator. Note that this bounty is supposedly only available to characters met by Amator at the camp on the Old Noddle. A total of 700 gold pieces offered, 100 gold pieces for each smuggler, 200 gold pieces for Ringor. There's also the value of any beast killed during the venture, i.e. a mink pelt or a snake skin. Finally, Amator Thelon overlooks some goods hidden in the hideout. So there's still a little wiggle room for the GM to pop a few goodies in there in addition to. Then we got chapter 7, the adventure 2 is Mikador's Tower, blah, blah, blah. We got the NPCs, and once again, like I said, I like these because I can plop these guys out of here, Xerox them off, copy them with my printer, and pop them into another place without a whole lot of effort. I can come up with a bunch of NPCs to fluff out the game system that I have to create for other players, right? So then we get the layout of the tower, the vicinity, and once again, like I said, here we got a ready-made tower. So if I was in a city situation where I've got some players who are in my sandbox and they decide somebody dissed them or something of interest caught their eye and they thought, well, we're going to follow this person home, this wealthy merchant or whatever, and try to raid his house or sneak in and steal his stuff or whatever they're going to do, I don't have to go and say, well, let's just go from the hip kind of thing. I can just turn around, grab this book off the shelf or a dozen others like it, whip this thing out, and ad lib as we go. So now I've got all the stuff I need and say, hey, here's their townhouse, blah, 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 blah. and I don't have to go into a whole lot of brain work, and nor do I have to stop the game and say, okay, well, since we're going to do this, I'm going to need a minute. I'm going to need a week to come up with this to do this right. So we'll have to end our session early and come back next time. This just helps me keep from doing that. So, like I said, the lazy GM's way of doing things. And then, of course, we're on to Chapter 8 and the adventure, The Lost Ring, Lady Tatham's Tale, which is what it began speaking with, giving you a little taste of the art of the wordsmithing, the word art that goes with the game system, and goes on to the details. Here's a picture of Lady Tatham, so on and so forth, and then various add-ons, their household and people that were assisting in the tale, blah blah. Then now he's disconnecting the hose. Any minute now. A lot of undapped in there. I guess he's unhooking. I don't know what he's doing. He disconnected something. Now he's mellowed. Come on. There we go. Yeah, you let that drain out, I guess. Yeah. The thing behind me makes a lot of racket noise too when I do what I do. It's just running the pump, so maybe not as high pitched stuff as that, but it does get noisy. And then like Hib, mine has a nice aroma when it gets going, So, and then we're going on Chapter 8, the area, broad Tarthan locations, and basically it gives you a map of the surrounding fens and detail location. Then we got their particular citadel, their house of stone and wood that was built out of favor of the famous dwarf mason Holly, however it's pronounced. The plot, starting the players, the rewards, other aids and obstacles. So, the rewards: once the mule-lip mage is killed, Lord Tathan restored to his original form, the curse is lifted. He will then be able to lead a character to the creature's lair if they cannot find it, and there to bestow upon him all its treasures other than his own burst sword and armor. You should work out what is in this treasure according to the norms of your campaign adventures. It might include a handsome sword that doubles the tracking and stock hiding bonuses for ranger scout characters, lots of jewelry, a painted bronze shield with deflections 2 times a day, a cask containing 6 potions, a long-handled axe able to cut a tree down in but 3 rounds, plus 1 round for every foot the trunk is wide, a belt of silver leaves, which adds 5 to the wearer's PR and 25. I'll go back in it for a minute. See, now, but most game systems, D&D is probably well known for it, but Middle Earth MERP is no exception. We have treasure books. We have books that are just full of stuff that people come up with to make it easier for us to put out loot. Occasionally, we run across some stuff that are interesting, in and of themselves for good reasons. My apologies if you're out there yawning with me. Yawn deep, my fellow friends. Yawn deep. The mention of this sword, or a long-handled axe able to cut a tree down in but 3 rounds plus 1 round for every foot of trunk it's wide. Now, somebody would go and say, I'm going to sell that sword. I'm going to sell that axe because, it's not actually a magical weapon designed for additional damage. It doesn't have some big plus modifier to hacking down giants, for example, or hacking down orcs. But it's specifically some woodsman axe designed to, clear a forest, right? So, in and of itself, not so much. Now, a creative player might take this weapon make it his own, and then go in and we go into these villages and it's a way of announcing his prowess to the locals, or maybe to hork them off, depending on how you want. And that's HORK, friend, hork them off. He'll challenge the best woodsman or the best tree cutter in the neighborhood to a competition. The whole town gets excited because, hey, anytime you got a boring village life and an outsider can come in, they can be a challenge. It's an excuse for a party. And to see how many trees we can cut down in an hour, or who can cut down the biggest tree the fastest. And there you go. Okay, just saying. All right, interesting stuff. Just a matter how you want to twist it and turn it. So we know it's the ring of the Meladan. We know now that it is actually an Elvish ring and not the ring, which I didn't think it was. And it says, in addition to everything described above, there's the natural dangers of the slow, foul mare in its own right, blah, blah, blah. Help can come from very strange and unexpected sources, such as those discussed above. A very charismatic player character might be able to persuade Nardil or one of the castle's retainers to accompany them. Alternately, you could have a party encounter Coremaster, the Ranger, or some other more powerful NPC able to assist them. Naturally, assist for the help, they should forfeit the share of the rewards. Doesn't give the stats on the ring though. I'm sure it's here somewhere. I just kind of expected it to be. Oh, yeah. All right. Right next to it. Right. The ring of the Meladan. This ring of which the story turns, the gold band set with Arlacrim glorious jewels, was forged in the Second Age by elven smiths of Ostinodal, which I have that book. We'll get to that eventually. A powerful talisman made in the latter days of the settlement. Its maker suspected that there was a hand of evil at work among the jeweler smiths, and sought to protect all good things against him. The ring has the following powers: × 2 PV multiplier, plus 33 essence rolls once per day. The permanence, a spell which changes any spell of time duration, or basically make a permanent spell. 2 times per day dispel evil essence up to 33rd level. 3 times a day repel evil at 33rd level. This spell will make all evil beings wish to leave the immediate vicinity of the wearer by making all their activity a -5 per round spent within 20 feet range. 4 times per day perceive power at 33rd level. And the ring is sentient and will act of its own accord even if the wearer is unaware of danger, using power points available through its × 2 multiplier capacity. The ring has many power points as the player has, unless the player is aware of the effect and uses them him or herself. So we got a semi-intelligent ring, or an intelligent ring. You know, you hear a lot of intelligent swords and weapons and so on and so forth. Not so much in the rings. This is interesting. The ring's talking to me, mother. It's telling me to. Never mind. I'm just saying, right? And then we end our module with the tables of encounters and NPC lists and monster lists and so on and so forth. You know, as I say, good system, good book. You know, Mouse of the Entwash, easily converted to just about any game system. You don't have to play it as Middle Earth if you didn't want to. Something to consider. And on with the next one, right?